Hello everybody.
What happened to Bleach's art style? The manga is known for its insane art thanks to Tite Kubo, but it didn't always look this polished. Go back to the first few volumes and Ichigo and the other characters look pretty goofy by comparison.
Wait, that's true.
So what changed? What did Kubo do to make Bleach look so
I love this character.
iconic? In this video, I'm going to look at all of the artistic changes Kubo made starting-
Wait, is this a play on the lawyer anime thing? He looks like it. What is it called again?
in chapter 1 and going all the way to the Hell arc in order to explain how he gave Bleach
Yeah, I
one of
miss Ulquiorra. Unfortunately, Ulquiorra is actually dead for reals. Like, you know how no one actually dies in anime? But Ulquiorra is dead for real. I googled it because I wanted to know. Yeah, Ace Attorney. I wanted to know if there was a chance he would come back because I really like this character, but apparently he's dead.
the all-time best art styles in all of manga. Be warned that since this will cover the entire series, this video will probably contain some spoilers. Now, let's start by looking at the very first
Wait, how
stage
much
of
spoilers?
Bleach's art style, which we can simply call Early Bleach. Early Bleach starts with Volume 1 and goes just about to the end of Volume 10. Now, the first thing I'd like to point out
their
is
faces
that
were more
Bleach's
wide
art
back then.
style is very much a reflection of its story. Whereas the story comes off as super dark and it's actually pretty goofy, the art style appears to be realistic, but is actually just as stylized as anything else. So for example,
I love the drips too in their colored spread. You know, like with each chapter, they have like one colored spread, and I love the drips. I love those showcases.
come across the panels of Yoruichi in her cat form, and those look pretty realistic. Not photorealistic, but certainly more realistic than the animals you might see in other manga. And the same is true for backgrounds. Unlike a story like, say, Black Clover, which stylizes its scenery to fit the tone, Bleach presents the world as is. Not stylization, not over-the-top details, just buildings and alleys drawn about how you'd expect them to look in any other manga. Now, on the other hand, Bleach is also incredibly stylized, and in early Bleach, it's pretty cartoonish. For example, characters like Rukia display a lot of silly chibi faces that we only ever see in this stage of the art. You also get pages like
It's
this
cute,
where
though.
Ichigo punches Ganju. His fist is blown up and Ganju's face literally flies off the page, making it look like a Sunday comic strip. And Ganju's reaction looks like it was ripped right out of a gag
like
manga
that.
like Bobobo. It's worth noting that although this goofiness never goes away and is a staple of Bleach, this particular style of chibi faces and over-the-top drawings is unique to early Bleach. That being said,
Really?
early Bleach is also a bit more cartoonish because of the character designs at the time. And what I'm about to say may come off as a hot take, so just bear with me. In my experience,
Am I gonna get triggered?
I would say early Bleach
See, like
is
those drips are cool. Those I like when they showcase them in clothing they would never wear in the manga. It's like puts them out of their usual scenery.
when Bleach looked the most generic. You look at early One Piece, and that's a distinct art style. You
Yeah.
look at early Shaman King, and that is definitely
I
a
love the
distinct
Shaman King art style.
Early Bleach is sort of in this middle ground, like the
But I
stuff you can
thought-
see in early
I thought Shaman King didn't last that long, or maybe I just didn't keep up with it that long.
Naruto. It's this weird mix of
Naruto style also changes. It matures. Like, it gets better with time.
wanting to tap into the charm of Dragon Ball while also building its own style. And whereas Naruto is probably closer to Dragon Ball, Bleach just has this very 2000s look. And this is mainly due to the shapes of characters. For example, let's take a look at Ichigo. Does he look drastically different? No. But clearly the style is different. His hair, while basically the same, is much spikier, and his jaw is much more box-shaped with lots of sharp angles. You can also see this in Chad's design. Here, in this example, you can see that while Chad does look somewhat realistic thanks to Kubo's attention to anatomy, where you can see the style of early Bleach is in the muscles. They have this somewhat polygonal shape to them, which is common throughout all of early Bleach. Another thing worth noting is eyes. Especially with characters like Orihime, eyes are drawn somewhat farther apart. More than anything, I think it's this way of drawing eyes that gives early Bleach a more generic look. For example, if you compare Rangiku now to
Oh,
how she
mommy.
looked in early Bleach,
Bark, bark.
it's surprising to see how generic she looks by comparison. Thankfully though, Kubo would obviously improve in his character designs. Now, another thing worth noting in early Bleach is the paneling. But before I get into that, make sure to like the video if you're enjoying it so far. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and it helps spread the video to other viewers like you. Now, as I'm sure you know, Bleach is notorious for its use of blank space, and we'll get into that in the next part of the video.
Oh, is it?
But something that stands out in early Bleach is Kubo's use of onomatopoeias. While this is very common
Eyes
in
got
2000s
closer
manga
and the
like
breast spread apart. I don't know, I'll have to look at more breasts to make sure this is the case. I'm gonna have to study more breasts and get back to you on that.
by experience, I almost want to say Kubo does it better. Almost. I'm not quite sure, but it's definitely up for debate. For example, look at this panel of Orihime's brother attacking Ichigo. Now I know this is the Viz version, not the original source material, but still. Look at the way it fills up the space, making Orihime's brother look bigger and making him that much more intimidating. You also have this example here where Ichigo does a basic attack, but the onomatopoeias fill up the page in a way that makes this attack look insanely powerful. It is worth noting that these onomatopoeias take on a lot of different styles as the story goes on. Here, they're much closer to something you would see in One Piece or even Dragon Ball. But on that note, let's move on to the next stage.
Like that arc, the style got much more mature, I think.
The second stage
Like,
of Bleach,
oh my god, I
which
fucking love Grimjaw. He's legit one of my favorite characters.
I referred to.
I hope he's gonna come back. Yeah, the Arankar arc. Rima went the opposite. Rima 2.0 eyes got further apart and Booba's closer together. True. I just realized he's using Sonic Heroes music in the background. Ooh. Yeah, Grimshaw's great. I hope he comes and help them. I stopped reading the manga in the Hiwak arc because now they're rebooting the anime. And I kind of don't want to spoil. It's funny because the manga came first, obviously, but I don't want to spoil myself for the anime, so I'm keeping it as a surprise. But I'm getting incredibly tilted watching the anime. Like, what's the point of making a squad 0 that's supposed to be way stronger? Like, we've never heard of them before. We've never heard of them. And suddenly they're like, oh yeah, there's a squad 0 that's way stronger than all the captains got in 13. Okay. And then they just get shit stomped in like the first fight we had. What's the point of having them? They're useless. So fucking tilting. And why is he so strong? I don't... Whatever.
As
Whatever.
Arankar starts around volume 11
He's
and
too OP,
continues
man.
all the way to the Aizen fight in fake Karakura Town. So about volume 44. And as you can see, that's,
Dude, that's
over
such
30
a
volumes.
great cover. It's kind of like very 90s, like Matrix style too.
Which stands to show that Bleach's art style pretty much stays the same after volume 10. So, what changes? Well, Bleach continues its use of onomatopoeias, but something that stands out in the second stage
What's the
is Kubo's use
onomatopoeia?
of
Is it
text
the words? Like the big letters?
bubbles. For example, you have this page where Ichigo is fighting the Vizards. And here you can just feel the rage coming from Ichigo.
I like the
Not
Vizards.
only the lettering, but even the shape of the word bubble. But
Yeah,
where
we
the
watched another video essay where the guy said that the Bleach mangaka is very good at drawing those kind of letters, almost making it like part of the art.
real genius can be seen is in the
it's the
use
sound
of text
effects.
bubbles in empty space. For example, you see this a ton with characters when they say Bankai or they say the name of their Zanpakuto. Like I said before, the empty space is fairly common and it's not unique to panels with text. But used with these text bubbles, it makes the text that much more meaningful. Because when all you have is just the character and the name of their sword, the delivery of that name has that much more impact. It's almost like you can hear the character saying that name and everything else gets tuned out, not unlike the delivery of these names in the anime. Which is why, in my opinion, Bankais are one of the most iconic and influential power-ups in all of anime and manga. Now, you also
That
see a lot
shot
more
looks so great.
influential power-up.
That looks way better than the anime version here. Like, way better. It looks more dynamic.
My opinion, Bankais are one of the most iconic and influential power-ups in all of anime and manga.
Bye, Winter.
Now, you also see a lot more expression in the action. Whereas manga like, say, Jujutsu Kaisen or Sakamoto Days are known for their dynamic paneling and choreography, Bleach's action is, well, as fellow YouTuber Radman likes to put it, static. In practice, what this means is that action in Bleach doesn't have a lot of choreography. You do get rare panels like this one where Yoruichi fights off against Soifon, but for the most part, it's a lot of power-ups, key attacks, and clashes. For example, something like this clash between Ichigo and Byakuya is fairly common, but a panel like this one is much more visceral than something you would find in early Bleach. And it only gets better. For example, here's a spread of Ichigo clashing with Grimmjow. Technically speaking, it's nothing crazy.
I like the... See, I love his expression here, Grimmjow. I like the grin, the evilish grin. You know, he looks a little psychotic. Because he loves fighting, and he's finally found an opponent as strong as him. Somebody else that has that kind of grin is Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen. Oh yeah, he's having the time of his life. Oh no, I have several types, Charlie.
But at a
Don't
basic
underestimate
level,
me.
when you turn to a page like this, you can just feel the aura. The energy spreads
But like
this.
Ichigo looks so much better now than he used to. I feel like his face is way more balanced than before. I feel like before their faces were more, they were shorter in length and they were wider. And now they still have a very strong defined jaw and nose, but it's a little bit more elongated. Yeah, he uses black and white so well.
Remind me of whenever I would watch the intro to a match in my favorite fighting games. It's simple, you've seen it a million times, but it's so exciting. But where you see the most expression is, of course, in character designs. In the second
I love
stage,
that character, by the way. Bowl cut guy. Shinji, is that it? That's also one of my other favorite. There's a lot of characters that I really like in this manga. I also like him. I like that he looks like the guy from Clockwork Orange. He's very 60s. He has the whole like visored, not all of them. I think like 2 or 3 of them have a very mod style. I'm not talking about Twitch mod. I'm talking about 60s mods, which was kind of like these very tight-fitting clothes, short dress with the little scarf, and like the haircuts that were very graphic.
Retain Kubo's stylized look, but they're much more balanced out. So for example, here's that same page of Ichigo from before. Now here's a page of him from chapter 153.
Yeah, I
While
like
the
the new
two
one
are
better.
fairly similar, like I mentioned before, you can see the
Did they remake Clockwork, really? Yeah, all of the visors have weird fashion. I like the visor that has... I love the visor girl with the red tracksuit is cool. Very anime trope. And then I also like the one that's into music and he has these very long blonde curly hair. He looks like a vampire. Kubo's like, why should I draw backgrounds if I can draw hot girls with big boobas? Like, Wako World is basically a desert, not a single background. Hey, there's some dead trees here and there. I do feel like they really use Orihime more and more as some kind of fan service. Like in the arc that I'm watching right now, her boobas are really, like, her outfit is very skimpy. Okay, and I'm just like, damn, that's in a shonen. It feels a little out of place.
the shift in style. His hair doesn't look as spiky because it's somewhat bigger and the spikes serve more as an outline. And instead of this polygonal jawline, Ichigo's jaw is more rounded out and comes together in a tiny chin shape.
That is
in
her
general,
only
the character
purpose?
designs are still stylized, but now there's more of a balance between...
They know what boys want? Do people really enjoy reading this character? I thought she's just, it's just the part that I want to skip over. I think she's boring.
realism and stylization, and yet at the same time, they have much more personality. And this is mostly due to Kubo's shift in focus. Before, he would define his style in the shapes of
I hated her
characters.
character, oh my
But
god.
going forward, it's defined by how he focuses on certain details. For example, here's a page of Yami from chapter 231. Now, clearly it's more detailed than
She's
something
not
in early
boring. I'm sorry, daytime. Yeah, she has 2 huge personalities. Her power is powerful. That's why Aizen seeks her out. Her power, it's like a healing power, but it reverses time or something. But anyway, I just don't get why then she can't repair the Soul King if her power works like that.
But to sit here and say this character looks realistic would be kind of an odd take. He certainly has more personality, and I think that's where the feeling of realism comes from. So for example, you can see the detail in Yami's cheekbones and his nose, and yet if a real person
Chad does have more dialogue lines than her, for sure.
Features like this, it would likely be the case of some pretty serious plastic surgery. More than anything, what makes Bleach seem realistic is the exaggeration of detail. It's detailed, but it's far from realistic. Which is why I think Bleach characters are the most anime characters you can find. Because they appear realistic, but in reality, their designs are incredibly over the top. Funny enough, this is best represented in—
Bro, I love the... Who's your favorite character, Charlie? Is it Orihime? There's a lot of other Booba characters that are more interesting than Orihime. Like, fuck, what's her name? Lady Bell? No, not Lady Bell. Something Bell. Orihime only serves to be Ichigo romantic partner? What about Rukia then? And Yorichi is so fucking hot. Yorichi is so beautiful. Harry Bell, thank you. Thank you, yeah, it's Harry Bell. Lots of under booba.
And two of Bleach's most popular characters,
Neliel is cute
Kenpachi
too.
and Mayuri. Because while these two have some pretty crazy designs, they're also the most expressive of Kubo's characters. Admittedly, Bleach does not excel in character poses in the same way One Punch Man does or Dragon Ball does. You do kinda see it, but it's not quite on the same level. That being said, where you see a lot of character expression is in faces. For example, you will see a ton of panels with Kenpachi where this dude is screaming or shouting.
Yeah,
And
this
it's like
character's
Kubo took a
awesome.
mold and just stretched it as long as he could. These exaggerated shapes are
Renjiku is super fan service, but she's funny. She's funny. And I like her interaction with Hisugaya.
Kenpachi's face and even his mouth are over the top and far from realistic, but they express emotions in a way where you can feel them in your gut, and in that sense,
I
they
love
do feel
Kenpachi.
real. In the case of Mayuri, you often see him showing off
I hate Mayuri. You think he's Chad? I can't believe you guys like that character. He's so sinister.
his impressive set of teeth. And whenever he does this, you can almost see what's going on in his head. It displays a mix of feelings ranging from fascination, intrigue, admiration, and bloodlust. So, Bleach's characters give off the impression of realism, but in reality, they are over the top. Yet, at the same time, it's this absurd character expression that makes them feel real. And this stays true even in the later chapters. Which brings us to the third stage. Stage 3 starts with volume 44 and continues up through the final volume. Now, like I mentioned before, Bleach is pretty consistent.
He's
after the
evil
first
and he
stage.
loves it. I can respect that. Alright, fair enough. Oh my god, I love everything about Shinzui too, man. So good.
So not much changes, but there are a few things that give the full bringer
I
and
also really like the trope, and there may not be that many of this trope in this anime. You know, they're very happy-go-lucky, careless guy, but that's really, I like that trope too. It's a very good one.
in your Blood War arcs a distinct look. One of the first things I noticed was the level of detail. Bleach was already detailed before, clearly, but in this stage the art really does seem more detailed. Not a ton more, but again, just enough that when you transition—
Bucket Hat Guy is kind of like that, but he really rarely shows off his power, so there's more of that trope in Jujutsu Kaisen for sure.
from Arankar to this stage, you can't help but notice the difference.
Yeah, I love
think
Urahara. Yeah, Bucket Hat Guy. I can't speak. Yeah, Urahara is great, but they show off his intellect and his, like, planning more than his powers. Like, they made a point that his powers are great, are powerful, and, like, the flashbacks and stuff. But then we don't really see him fight a lot. He comes in clutch moments because he, like, foresees a lot of events before they happen just because by his power of deduction. So he comes in at really clutch time. But aside from that, we don't really see him fight that much.
I think a good example of this is Rukia. Of course, Rukia looks different with her new design, but generally speaking, I think it's pretty easy to notice she's somewhat more detailed in Fullbringer and Thousand Year Blood War than she is in Arrancar. Speaking of characters, another thing I noticed is that character designs overall seem more rounded out. So
I felt like she changed a lot between the Espada arc and the Thousand Years Blood War arc, to the point where sometimes I felt like it was confusing for me to recognize her.
For example, let's use that page of Ichigo from Stage 2. Now here's Ichigo from Chapter 537. Again, his hair looks less spiky and much
He's
softer.
hotter!
And his face, while still somewhat stylized, looks rounder. Instead of coming to a thin point, his jaw rounds out to a more realistic chin shape. And while you have sharper looking characters like Kenpachi, I'd say this rounder look is true for most of the characters in later Bleach. Finally, one small change I noticed is in the line work. Bleach generally has thick line work. Not cartoonish, but not exactly thin either. And this is true in later Bleach as well.
Oh, I like the guy that's obsessed with beauty. He's funny. He's very vain. I really like the shading with the lines too. Dude, that character, what's his name? Kira? Bro, he's such a whiny bitch. I don't like that character. He's so annoying.
But not exactly thin either. And this is true in later Bleach as well. But in this stage, you start to notice a rough, almost brushstroke approach to line work.
Yeah, the bald guy from Division 11? True, where is he now? We haven't seen him in a while. He was fun. There was a lot of characters from Division 11 that are cool.
Serving as a contrast to the more detailed line work of early Bleach. But this is really only true for this stage. Which brings us to the final stage. Stage 4, which I personally refer to as the anniversary era of Bleach, consists of everything after the end of the manga, which means the one-shot chapter as well as everything from Burn the Witch. Again, not a ton of changes, but there are a couple that are easy to overlook.
This is spoiler territory for me.
On top of the line work, Kubo moves away from the rough approach of later Bleach and goes back to...
That's a lot of assets here, but I like this. I love this drawing. It's very cool. It's interesting.
More defined lines. Part of this is most likely because he wasn't rushing like before, but I would argue part of it is due to his shift to digital art that he made in recent years. Interestingly enough, one thing I overlooked and only just realized is that in the one-shot, there aren't nearly as many blank backgrounds. When I reread this chapter, I was pleasantly surprised to find that there's plenty of scenery. Granted, there's empty backgrounds in the
Wow, who is that guy? I'm gonna have to read this manga. Rukia was never supposed to be Ichigo's romantic interest. Kubo always wanted them to be more like brother and sister, but the anime was Rukia's simp. Oh, the anime director was Rukia's simp, okay. Well, I think the beauty of shonen is that the romantic relationships are hinted at, but not totally concretized, and I kind of want it to stay that way. I don't like too much romance in my mangas. I like the predictability of shonens. I like knowing how it's gonna end. I like that there's not too much crazy shit going, like there's some kind of comfort in knowing exactly how a fight's gonna end. You know the good guy's gonna win somehow, you know? And I just like all the tropes. I like the things that come back. It gives me a sense of comfort. So yeah. I like, you know, the flashbacks during the power-ups. I like the tropes, you know, I love all of that.
Later half of the chapter, but I mean, come on, it's Bleach. Kubo's gotta do at least a little bit, right? In any event, there's much more focus on scenery in the one-shot, and thankfully, this is also true for Burn the Witch. Finally, you can see another change in character designs. To be honest, I don't know exactly what it comes down to. But if you ask me, right now it's like a mix of detail and making the characters somewhat more rounded out and the whole digital art thing.
What's a scene
Like,
in?
when you compare Ichigo in the end of Bleach and Ichigo in the one-shot, there's definitely a difference, but it's hard to articulate what really changed. I believe Kubo said in an interview that as he does the digital art, he tries to make it look analog, so if anything, I would say that's what it comes down to. But in any event, that's the final stage of Bleach, before we eventually get some new chapters. Now that we've gone through each stage, it's time that we discussed some final notes on the art style overall. First of all, we gotta talk about the drip. I don't care what your favorite series is, nobody touches Kubo when it comes to drip. Bleach practically
True.
defines drip in manga,
Yes.
whether it's the designs of characters or the cool outfits they wear in color pages that bring you back to 2005. Another thing I love about Bleach is its use of blank space and big panels. While the emptiness might seem lazy at first, it makes Bleach truly special. Like I said,
No, I
it
don't
gives
mind
words
it.
more meaning. It makes characters more dramatic. And I would even argue that tying into Bleach's central themes, the empty space is a metaphor. Because you often see characters surrounded by blank backgrounds, you leave that much more for the reader to fill in
It conveys more emotion.
the blanks. Like the world of Bleach, the panels are empty and by definition have no inherent meaning, allowing readers to insert their own meaning for every page. Also, while the big panels don't leave room for as many panels to create dynamic choreography, it does allow Kubo to really lean into the detail of his art. This ranges from
You
silhouettes
disagree with the stake? Why?
for shading, crazy character expression, big clashes, and of course, over-the-top designs. Again, it creates this weird equilibrium where the detail makes Bleach feel real, but in reality, Bleach is the most anime-looking manga in the entire industry. And that's why it might just be my favorite art style in all of manga. But now I'd like to hear what you think. How would you rate Bleach's art style? How does it compare to other manga? Share your thoughts and see what everyone else has to say down in the comments. I'll
Blank space is misused and abused throughout the entire manga to the point it became a meme? How dare you? No, I don't mind it.
pick my
I like
favorite
it.
and share it as comment of the week on my community tab. And if you'd like another discussion like this one, then check out my video on One Piece. In that video, I analyze One Piece's artistic evolution. You can find that video in the playlist linked right here. Until then, thank you for watching. And
I think the JoJo art style looks good, but it's not my favorite anime art style. It's more like 80s shaded art. I don't even know how to describe it. I think it has a strong stylistic choices, but like I wouldn't find the characters hot per se.
I hope to hear from you
That makes sense.
soon.
This is how I base whether I like the manga or not. Can I go into it or not?